So we're going to go into the add, get the repeater. It makes 3 of them because that's what the repeater is set to. So let's open the repeater and change the number of copies. I think we'll try 1, 2, 7. See where 7 takes us. Now I'm going to expand the transform repeater because I want to adjust where they are positioned. Remember, not the regular transform, which would do nothing more than move the whole block. I want to spread them out and then control them. So this transform is out. It's in the repeater 1, it's transform. So make sure you're in the right transform. We're going to go ahead and change the position to 0, 0, which will put them all right behind each other. 0, 0. Now that sounds weird. Watch, because the next thing we're going to do will actually explain, because if they move out in a straight line, that's going to be a little weird. I'm going to want to kind of create an interesting circle here. So I'm going to change the rotation, and there they go, to 230 degrees. They go by each other. They're actually circling way outside of the composition a couple of times. 230 degrees. And there we are. Some of them you can't see because they're spread out so far. To change that, I think all I have to do is drop the scale of this spread. And you can see they come in a little bit. No, it's actually not going to work. I'm going to Control Z that. I think it's the offset. No, Control Z that. The anchor point. Yes, there we are. Okay. I'm going to bring the anchor point in. Control ZZ. So what I did was went to anchor point, and I began reducing the anchor point itself. The first number brings them together. The second number changes that rotation just a little bit because it changes where the anchor point is. There, that looks more like what I want. So we've got all of these stars now scattered in our screen. Alright, so all that was from this one transform repeater. I set some keyframes by accident. It seems to just be doing that. I'm just going to move them back to 0. I could delete them, but it doesn't hurt to have them in case I decide to make a change. I've already got my initial keyframe placed. No changes are made. Nothing will change. Okay, now they're all a little bit dark or too uniform. So I'm going to take the start and end opacities and change them. Take the end down to about 65%. It happens again. It's a 10% change from one shape to the next. The first one stays at 100, and then the next one goes down by 10 to 90, and then 80, and then 70, and so on. So again, end opacity here, I'm going to set it to, I don't know, I'm going to drop it a little bit more. I like about 20%. And I think that's pretty good. I could do something to the start opacity, which would drop the first one down too, but I want to leave a pretty good change between start to back. So I'm going to go ahead and transform, repeat, and close. I'm actually going to add an extra repeater and move these things all over the place. So let's close down all of our triangles, and we're going to go back in and add another repeater to get more of these stars. And based on where they're currently positioned, we'll have certain things that can happen. Again, if you had different settings with your numbers and your stars are in different places, then you're going to get a slightly different output than I am. I now get sets of 3 everywhere. We're going to go and open up this repeater, the new one that was added, and I'm going to leave it at 3 instead of adding more. It'll just get kind of crazy. I'm going to change the position in the transform for this repeater. So that they're on top of each other again. Actually, I'm going to go backwards. How about negative 140-ish and 0. ish. Rotate it 40 degrees so we get kind of a spread. They're all over the place. Okay. I'm going to change the scale a little bit too here. So some are larger and some are smaller. Let's see. Let's go larger, smaller. Okay. So scale was up. Actually, I went back to 100. I'm going to go larger, about 120. And the end opacity down to pretty much almost 0, so that we have a lot of variations in the opacities of these various stars. Okay, I'm pretty happy with where things are placed there. I think the grouping is a little off, too much empty space. So I'm going to move the whole thing. So I don't want to do the transform in the repeaters. I want the major transform, so I now can adjust the overall position of this monstrosity that I have created. Looks like they go that way. I might rotate this. And then, based on where that anchor point is, move them into position throughout the screen. Got to rotate it some more, it looks like. As you can see now where the rotation box is, I'm going to bring this down some more. There they are. Now they're all there. And I'm going to continue to slide it into the screen. Maybe up a little bit more. So I rotated it about 90 degrees. And I now have a pretty good spread of where these stars are all over the background. I could spread it out some more. I think this is pretty good though for what we're trying to accomplish. Alright, now I need to make these stars turn. If you remember, the background suns are turning in a clockwise direction. So I'm going to change it to a backwards direction for the suns. So to turn the suns, I have to go back to the actual shapes polystar and rotate it. If I do the outside, the whole block rotates. So I will go here to the transform for this polystar, and I will find its rotation and be able to rotate. Ooh, that's actually pretty cool, but not what I wanted. It was the first repeater. Well, actually, that's really cool. So I think we're going to go ahead and change the lesson a little bit here and go with this. So let's go ahead, Control Z, change the rotation. First put a keyframe, and then pull the rotation around about 360 degrees, so it goes around at least once. Move that keyframe to the end, and then check it out. It's like a swarming group of stars moving around in a very random fashion. Okay, cool. Close down the transform polystar. Close down the polystar. We are now done. Excuse me. We're going to save everything and lock the layer. And we're going to move on to adding the rest to our video now. So first things first, let's go ahead and get the DJ in here. Back to the project panel. DJ, drop him in, be on top of everything, so he's in front of. Again, he's a bit small, so I'm going to go to his scale, and I'm going to make him much larger. Actually large enough to get down to the bottom and just touch it, which is about 225%. Okay, and he is filmed, so this is a actual real guy. With the lighting they're using from down below, it has made his stuff look a little bit overly bright, but you can see the skin in his face and his arm. So we're going to make changes to him as we go. Let's put the music at the bottom. Whoops. Put it back in the folder. Put the music at the bottom. I keep having problems grabbing the music. There we go. And now we have our music in place and our DJ. Now the DJ will eventually disappear. And we probably would like to keep it going to get a full 10-second clip. I think the easiest way to solve this is having two DJs, but so they don't have a jump in them, I think we'll reverse the time of the second one. I'll show you what I mean. Click on DJ, hit Control D, which is the same thing as edit, duplicate. We get two. I'm going to take the second one, I'm going to move it down. See him behind him? Kind of fun, he's dancing. I'm going to go ahead and line these up right to the frame. So zoom all the way in and make sure that one ends where one starts. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and do something else. If I play this, you're going to notice that there will be a jump from where his position here is to where his position here becomes. Wasn't that noticeable actually, but I still want to improve the look of this. I'm going to render off a little bit less so you can see the whole thing. Okay, so here is what it looks like. Yeah, there's little jumps. So to get rid of the jump, we're going to reverse the second layer. So if I click on the second DJ, right click and go to time reverse, it will turn that around. And when I play it, it'll go and it'll just kick back in the direction and be going in opposite direction. But it's much smoother looking, I think. Alright, so now let's put my work area back over the whole project and keep going. So we're going to add a cartoon effect to this DJ. To do that, we're going to actually do it to both. Click in the effects type cartoon. When you find it, drop it on DJ 1 and on DJ 2. We'll make some adjustments to the cartoon layer so that we get the look we want, and we'll copy whatever we do to the first one to the second one so it stays the same. You can already tell he looks much more like a cartoon now than a person. The face, all the little edges and lines that were basically shadows and shapes of his edges are now blackened in with softening colors on the inside colors. Let's change this. So under cartoon, I could make some changes as to what I'm working on, just the fill or just the edges, or I can work on both at the same time. I'm going to go ahead and leave them both on and just make some simple adjustments. Every change we make is actually sort of the opinion of the artist as to what they actually want for a final look anyway. If I change the detail radius, as I move it up, it adds more strength to the black. Same with the threshold. Actually, that takes it away some. The other way adds strength. Okay. I'm going to adjust it some to give it a little bit of extra pop. That might be too much. I'm going to back it down a little bit. Shading steps between colors. Smooth it out a little bit. The edge threshold, how much edging? I don't know if I like the edging as much. There's no edging, just a flat cartoon. I'm going to put a little bit of edging in. The width of the edging, I'm going to keep it fairly small actually. It's got plenty of softness, I think, and I could change the opacity. But if I do that, I'm just putting them back to film mode, so we'll leave it on. There are some advanced things you can try as well, but I'm pretty happy with this overall effect that we've got. So now I'm going to go to the word cartoon. I'm going to hit Control C to copy this effect. Go to this one, touch cartoon, and hit Control V and paste the settings on this one as well. And now the cartoon is on both guys. Now what we're going to do is add our title bar and make it look sort of like an equalizer. So I need a shape for this to start, and then we'll make effects to the shape. Back to the rectangle. Draw the rectangle in fairly thin along the bottom. It's set to purple at the moment. I think I'm going to change it to white. I also don't like its position. Down a little more. Fill color, white. Stroke color. Let's add a stroke. The color. How about sort of a soft purple. Alright, that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit thicker so I can see it a little bit more. Alright, cool. Now I can do some things to the stroke or color's appearance. Inside of the shape is the contents for this rectangle. And I've got the fill and the stroke. Opening up stroke, I can make the opacity a little less so it's not quite as noticeable, about half. And I can do that to the fill as well, but I want this to be a solid looking equalizer that you can see well, but we could change some of that stuff, but we won't. Closing. Alright, now we're going to close down the rectangle path and go to Add, Wiggles, Wiggle Paths. When we choose Wiggle Paths, it'll add a wiggle path into the rectangle. And then we're going to make some adjustments to the wiggle path. First, to the size, from 10 to about 150, which will increase a lot of the wiggling. And the detail, up to 80, so there's more going on than less. The other way, I'll just bring it to nothing. About 80-ish. And the wiggles per second, how quickly it wiggles. From 2, too much. How about 5? Okay. Now let's see how this looks. It's got kind of a funky box line thing going on to it. I want more detail. As you change other parameters, you get a different look to it, so it kind of depends what you're after. I kind of like that. Alright, so I've got keyframes, but none of them are changes. Yes, some of them are. I'm going to get rid of all these keyframes so that I do not have changes to this thing. Just the wiggle effect will wiggle based on the settings we just put in here. Okay, so that one's good. I'm going to close it. I'm going to call this shape the lower third, because it's a lower third title holder essentially. Oh yeah, this shape here, which I locked, I'll unlock it. We should call that stars. Enter. Alright, I'm going to lock that back up. Alright, my lower third is finished. Everything's locked. Can't make too many changes to it. We're going to move on now and add our text. So I'm going to click on the text making tool and click down here. And I'm going to type South High Prom in solid purple letters. I'm actually going to change some of this. Leave that purple, we'll make the outside line be white, but the actual thickness of the line is going to have to be changed some. Maybe too much. Maybe 3. Alright, take my mouse tool, make this significantly larger to fit the screen. Too big. Adjust it till you get something about like this. And then let's go ahead, make sure it's somewhat balanced, and if you want to turn on your grid lines you can from here. I'm pretty happy with that. We're going to make an animated end for this. So what we'll do now is add, there's a whole bunch in the browse presets if you remember, underneath animating presets and animate text, because it's text, and animated in. So in that folder I'm going to just pick one that's called 3D rotate in by character. There's so many it's hard to find, so I'm going to go ahead and type 3D rotate in by character. There it is, and put that on the title. Before I do though, I almost forgot, the effect goes where the current time indicator is. So So I'm going to hit the home key to bring it back to 0, and then add the effect. And as I scrub through, each letter will come in. And there we are, and we now have an animated in title. I'm pretty happy with it. So we're pretty much set. So I'm going to save this, Control S, and I'm going to run a RAM preview so I can take a look at it here. Now that's going to take a few seconds to preview the entire video. But when it's done previewing, we'll have a good look at it with audio. That brings up the point that I also forgot. You have to hit 0 to do audio. Here we go. Re-rendering with the audio. Okay, so there's only one more thing left that we'll do when we're done with this project. I want to show you something called brainstorming that might help people that don't feel like they have artistic abilities, the ability to have different ideas basically presented to them based on your current first idea. It takes, say, your shaped background, sun or stars, and it can do other things to it that you may or may not like, but it's kind of a brainstorming session with you and the computer as to, hey, what kind of ideas do you like from your first idea? So we'll look at that in a few, but I first want to make sure that this looks pretty good. A little more rendering. That's the problem with not having the fastest computer out there. It takes longer to render a project. Having multiple processors would help. When you're all finished with this video and you're happy with it, you'll go ahead and export it as an H.264 and then upload it to YouTube so you can post it on your classroom tutorials section reflection on your website. This reflection will be pretty basic, just an explanation of what it is you did in each of these projects. Okay, here we go. It's just about finished. And that's pretty sharp. Okay, that's it. Check out the small tutorial on brainstorming and you'll be all finished with your classroom basic training and classroom After Effects tutorials. You'll have a pretty good skill set and become at least a beginning user, but many of you are now intermediate users. So congratulations on taking on such a hard program.